We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The Declaration of Independence articulated a radical new vision of the world that we are still trying to make real 250 years later. Within days, it had been published in papers throughout the 13 colonies, and within a week, it was burning a hole in international papers. But the desire for liberty and equal rights didn't just galvanize white people in America. The first petition using the language of the Declaration was submitted to the Massachusetts legislature just 6 months later by Prince Hall, a free Black man who called for the abolition of slavery. Prince Hall was born in 1735 or 1738, probably in New England, maybe in Boston, though no one knows for sure because there are no records of his birth. For 21 years, he was either enslaved or apprenticed to William Hall, a leather dresser. He received his freedom in 1770, a month after the Boston Massacre. In 1771, William Hall died and left Prince Hall property in Medford, which would have given him the right to vote if he were white. Starting in 1773, the spirit of the revolution led Black leaders to begin petitioning for their rights. First came Felix Holbrook, who had been ripped from Africa in 1750 when he was just 7 years old and sold in Boston to schoolmaster Abiel Holbrook. Presumably, Holbrook taught him to read and write. In 1773, Felix used his literacy to pen the first petition for freedom presented to a state legislature. When his plea was met with silence, he and 3 other men put together another petition, writing more than 100 copies by hand to distribute to each member of the Massachusetts House of Representatives. Felix's 1773 petition came in the same year as the Boston Tea Party, which led to the intolerable acts in 1774 that finally ignited the colonial powder keg into full-fledged war. Black men fought and were wounded in the battles of Lexington and Concord in 1775, the very first battles of the Revolutionary War. A month before the shot heard around the world, Prince Hall may have gone to the other side. Intent upon improving Black lives, Hall had arrived upon a radical idea: join the Masonic Lodge. The problem was that the Boston Masonic Lodge would not initiate. Records are scant and confusing, especially since most people refer to a biography written in 1903 by William Grimshaw, who made things up to protect the legacy of Black Masons. Aww. If Grimshaw and oral tradition are to be believed, on March 6, 1775, Hall and 14 other men slipped into Castle William Island in Boston Harbor, where the British 38th Regiment of Foot were garrisoned. There, they got Sergeant John Batt of Military Lodge No. 4 to initiate them and form African Lodge No. 1. If this happened, Prince Hall would have probably been trapped during the 11th month siege of Boston from April 19, 1775 to March 17, 1776. It's tempting to imagine him stuck in a starving, smallpox-ridden city under British occupation, holding a Masonic permit granted by the occupiers' army, all while quietly plotting revolutionary ideas of freedom and equality for Black people that he would unleash the second the siege lifted. But this probably wasn't true. Here's a horrible microfilm copy of the document in question. It says, G. Master Batt who made these brothers. And Prince Hall is the first name on the list. But what is that year in the corner? And then there's this document, which has a very clear 1778. So, is this blurry number of 5 making the founding of the African Lodge 1775? Or is it an 8 making it 1778? If the African Lodge was founded in 1778, then it would have been initiated by a very different John Bat. After the Battle of Bunker Hill, the 38th Regiment of Foot were dispatched in Nova Scotia to lick their wounds. Then the regiment was dispatched to New York, but Bat stayed behind in Nova Scotia. Records then show that Bat defected to the other side. He became a mercenary soldier and enlisted in the Continental Army in February 1778 as part of Colonel Henley's Continental Regiment, stationed in the Boston area. That would have totally made it possible for him to initiate Hall and his compatriots on March 6, 1778. The document with the blurry year shows that Bat received 25 guineas for initiating Prince Hall and 14 other free black men into Freemasonry. This was about how much an initiation fee actually cost, but it's $5,000 in today's money, and this amount probably was not shared with the Masonic Lodge. In any case, whether Prince Hall founded the African Lodge in 1775 or 1778, he had more on his mind than secret handshakes during the American Revolution. He may have petitioned the Committee of Safety to allow enslaved black men to enlist. At any rate, something goaded the Committee of Safety into passing a resolution on May 20th, 1775, specifically banning enslaved men from the military. Washington was a Southern slaveholder, so it took 3 years for this to be retracted. The first black regiment was finally formed in Rhode Island in 1778. He may have joined the Battle of Bunker Hill in June 1775. Continental Army muster rolls show 6 different entries for a soldier named Prince Hall from the Massachusetts area during the war. And on January 13, 1777, Prince Hall and 7 other black men presented a petition for freedom to the Massachusetts House of Representatives using the very language of the Declaration. Hall continued to serve the American cause right up until the end of the war. He spent May 1777 making 5 leather drumheads for the Boston Regiment of Artillery. He most likely enlisted in the Massachusetts 6th Regiment, spending the brutal winter of 1778 to 1779 defending the Hudson River and preventing British troops from moving north out of New York City. After the Battle of Yorktown in 1771, the war was effectively over, but the revolution was not. That same year, an enslaved woman named Mumbet overheard a dinner conversation about the revolution. The words, "all men are born free and equal," caught her attention. When she asked attorney Theodore Sedgwick whether those words applied to her, he suggested they go to court and find out. Arguing that slavery was incompatible with the newly ratified Massachusetts Constitution, Mumbet won her freedom. Together with the Quock-Walker cases, her lawsuit brought slavery to an end in Massachusetts. In 1783, another landmark petition landed at the House of Representatives. It was an eloquent account of Belinda Sutton, a black woman who had been stolen from Africa and enslaved for nearly 50 years by Isaac Royale Jr., one of the wealthiest slave owners in Massachusetts. When the revolution broke out, Royale fled to Nova Scotia and then England. He died there in 1781. His will emancipated Belinda with a total of 30 pounds for a lifetime of work. Belinda petitioned for a pension from Royale's estate and won. Massachusetts awarded her 15 pounds and 12 shillings per year, though it was only kind of paid. Since Belinda signed her petition with an X showing that she wasn't illiterate, someone had to have written that petition. Historians think that someone may have been Prince Hall. Slavery had ended in Massachusetts. Reparations were possible, but Black people still weren't safe. In 1788, 2 Black veterans of the Revolutionary War and a member of Prince Hall's African Lodge were hired to repair a ship. When they descended into the hold to do their work, the captain locked them in and sailed off to the Caribbean to sell them as slaves. Prince Hall immediately petitioned the Massachusetts House of Representatives, urging them to rescue the 3 men and enact measures to prevent Black citizens from being kidnapped into slavery. Hall's petition, backed by Quakers and Boston clergy, led to Massachusetts passing a law prohibiting the slave trade 1 month later. By then, the kidnapped men had arrived on St. Bartholomew. The captain tried to sell them to a merchant who just happened to be a Mason. Since Masons are bound by oath to help all brother Masons, he couldn't very well strip him of his freedom. Not knowing what to do, the Mason took the 3 men to the governor. Meanwhile, the kidnapping had gone viral. Newspapers covered it. People were outraged. John Hancock and the French consulate fired off letters to governors throughout the South and Caribbean trying to find the 3 men. The St. Bart's governor wanted no part of what he described as a dispute between Black and white people, but Hancock's letter made the situation impossible to ignore. He informed Boston that the men were safe. The Massachusetts legislature paid for their triumphant voyage home. Prince Hall had another concern: education. In 1787, Prince Hall and 13 other Black Bostonians petitioned the Massachusetts legislature about the city's schools. Black children weren't exactly barred from classrooms, but they couldn't learn anything with all the hostility and unequal treatment. The petition argued that since free Black people were being taxed, they deserved decent education. No response. 9 years later, Hall and other Black citizens tried again. This time, they asked Boston for a schoolhouse and a teacher for Black children. Still no response. So, in 1798, Black Bostonians opened a school themselves in the home of Revolutionary War veteran Primus Hall. Prince Hall died in 1807 and was buried at Copp's Hill, overlooking the Bunker Hill battlefield where he may have fought. Patriot, abolitionist, Mason, Prince Hall, Black founding father. This is Viva Lamore.